out of the combine, Todd's podcast he does, and he starts it with, hey, teams reached out to me and said Shedeur basically threw away the interviews, the time with these teams. He didn't think much of what we thought of him. And I that just stuck with me because I listened to it, but nowhere else was anybody reporting this. No one. I mean, we have news. We just hired another Schrager news guy, Schefter, NFL Network people, the whole thing. No one was going with this story. And if teams are reaching out saying this, I mean, the NFL news information deal is a daily thing in our world now, right?
Uh-huh.
And no one else was talking. And I just kept thinking about this as the process is going on. And then I started thinking, I was like, maybe they were asking him, what would it be? How would you handle not being the guy?
Mm-hmm.
You know? And so you hear about he just, threw away the interviews, didn't want to partake, didn't have value in what teams were talking to him about. And you just start thinking there's 32 teams, right? And then you think about the one-off that was last year and how many quarterbacks went early, right?
Right.
So this pool is minimized of teams that are going to take quarterbacks in this draft.
Mm-hmm.
And then you see the team that takes them, Cleveland, that passes over them, I don't know, 6 times.
Well, they took a quarterback before him in Dylan Gabriel.
And then they take Dylan Gabriel. And this whole storm of going, like no one thought it was going to happen. Then Field on Thursday night after the first round says, one time in the last 6 years, there's been more than one quarterback taken in the second round. And then you start looking at the slots of contract money about why quarterbacks aren't taken in the second round. So this could be a possibility, but no one thinks it's going to happen. We come on Friday night, second, third round. He's still not taken. It's a story going into the fourth round. And then he goes into fifth round. And in a day and age where social media and news and reporting and all this, that Todd was the one that said this thing about what ended up being a big factor,
yep,
but no one else did. And then everyone is just blown away that he didn't go. And is there an agenda with the team? No. But I just thought that was there, but people didn't want to listen to it or didn't listen to it or couldn't listen to it.
Schrager went on. I was texting with him throughout the weekend, and he went on, I think, Get Up with Greeny. He was like, he's not going to go in the first round. And Greeny was like apoplectic. Like, What are you talking about? Like, I don't have him, like, based on what he was hearing. And then the Field point about the second round has not been a place where quarterbacks tend to go for one reason or another. McShay had a little bit more layering and detail about the specific interview as it related to the Giants.
That was after, yeah.
Correct. And that came out on his most recent podcast on The Ringer about from people in the room and not being necessarily, the story goes, like, they've put you on the whiteboard and Dable had questions about it and it didn't go well.
Mm-hmm.
That's just one team. But that was one team that presumably needed a quarterback. And according to Schefter, offered this, that, and the other thing to take the guy that did go number 1, 0-star to number 1 pick, Cam Ward. They needed a quarterback, didn't take him. So McShay had that reporting on what happened. And so it's seen as a slide because, look, there's one person in particular on our network, and that's Mel Kiper, that was he was all in. This is the guy. He's my guy. And then as it went on, and he like reached a point where he's like literally angry on television. And Louis Riddick said, look, the draft is spoken. And look, we appreciate Mel and love the guy and the passion, but like your opinion of this and the league's opinion appear to be different. And then it gets into the why. And that's where I struggle, because if this young man truly just wasn't that interested in the job interview process, well, he wouldn't be the first young man or young woman to maybe have a bigger sense of self than the job interview where the folks sitting on the other side of the desk from you are like, okay, well, then you're just not for us because you don't seem to value this part of the process, if that's what happened, right? But to have it turn into some suggestion that the league colludes against a family or that there's some racial agenda against the Sanders family is where I just am like, hold on. There's just too many things here that a mountain of evidence to the contrary from a league that will take a quarterback. Well, they'll take a player who's accused of or guilty of actual crimes. They'll look the other way if you can help him win games. Hell, the team he was drafted to gave up the most guaranteed money at the time and a pile of number ones for a person who wasn't even playing in the NFL, Deshaun Watson, because he'd been suspended over more than 20 women and the accusations made against him. That's what Cleveland did for a quarterback who was not playing, not allowed to play because of the league saying, no, Cleveland's like, we'll give you all this money and draft picks. That's what the league will do if they think that you can help them win games. So when the league collectively doesn't take a quarterback, one specific quarterback, the idea that it's a targeted lesson to a family, the patriarch of whom is in the Pro Football Hall of Fame, like, I think that's just people have created this expectation that he was going to go early and didn't, and now there's no other explanation. There can't be any role that the young man played in this? No. Could have been that. Could have been that they don't see him as a starter and feel like this is a larger kind of lens that the world's going to look at your backup than they want. A lot of different reasons why it could happen. But when it became just this idea of some sort of targeted lesson to a family because of an involved dad and a son that was entitled, how short are people's memories? Do you not remember Caleb Williams? This guy was called what? A diva. He's living in a penthouse in Los Angeles. He's the Heisman Trophy winner. He's got fancy accessories and painted fingernails and odd things to older people that can't make sense of that. And by the way, has a dad who's his business manager and runs a training camp for basically quarterbacks. That's a dad who's going to be a hell of a lot more involved than Deion Sanders, who's coaching the Colorado. So if the idea is you don't like a dad that's involved in the life of the quarterback, has real specific ideas, a dad that said that he thought his son should have an ownership stake in the team that drafted him, and a quarterback with an outsized, presumptive to the outside world ego. The NFL was so concerned about the Williams family that they drafted him number 1 overall because they thought he could do it. Now, what was the line that came out of the Caleb Williams interview process? Over the top impressive. That was what came out of how he treated the interview process. So I just watched the tonnage of reaction to this and thought, seemed like people were freaking out in the moment. Maybe as the dust settles, people can look at this through the lens of where McShay got in the end. You got drafted.
Yeah.
By a team that does not have a great quarterback room situation, and you have the opportunity to show that everybody that passed on you missed the boat. You got the opportunity to go be the quarterback of the Cleveland Browns. So seize it. Focus on what's required now, which is the work to go earn the job. I just think that ignoring the sort of, and forget the part about like the idea that this was it was like singularly racist against a quarterback, the black quarterback or Sanders family. I mean, the last top 2 picks in the last 2 drafts, Young and Stroud, Williams and Daniels, now Cam Ward. Like, there's no the old days of the NFL having an issue with that. That's long gone, long gone. Take the best player at the position. Last 5 number 1, 2, 3 picks and number 2 picks, all quarterbacks happen to be black. That storyline, I think, is gone. What role did Shedeur Sanders' appetite for the process play in this? Don't know. But the reporting indicates that there was some. And so now he has the opportunity that for a couple of days, it was like, man, when's he going to get picked? You and I raved about the guy all season long. All season long. So I was baffled by it. But I'm not in a room in the NFL.
Yeah.
And I don't know what I don't know about that part of it. But I'm rooting for the guy to do it because I thought he was awesome all season long behind an O-line that didn't give him much of a chance.